You ever look back on a chunk of your life and wonder what exactly it was all for? Because that's where I'm at right now. My name's Wanda, I'm 26. And I just watched the man I gave 7 years of my life to Victor marry someone else. And no, I don't mean he proposed after years of hesitation. I mean he met someone new, dated her for half a year, and gave her the life I waited for in vain. People keep telling me to move on or take the high road, but the truth is, I'm not the villain in the story. I didn't cheat, I didn't lie, and I didn't walk away first. What I did was build someone up from scratch and watch him hand everything. I helped him become to someone else. Victor and I met when I was 19, he was 22. It was a random house party in Dallas. I was there with friends, wearing my favorite jeans and zero expectations. Then I saw him, quiet, thoughtful, sipping a drink like he wanted to disappear into the wall. Something about that made me walk over. We talked. It was easy, natural. He wasn't like the other loud, attention-seeking guys. He was soft-spoken, kind of nerdy, but in a way that made you want to lean in and know more. Back then, he worked in tech. I honestly never cared about the exact role. Something data-ish. I just knew it paid decently and it wasn't shady. I was working in customer service, juggling people all day long and trying to climb that slow, miserable ladder. We started dating fast. Within a year and a half, we moved in together. It wasn't glamorous. A modest apartment in a still coming up neighborhood, but it was ours. We split rent pretty evenly, though I always felt like he should contribute more. I mean, he earned more. Isn't that just how serious relationships work? The guy steps up, but no. Victor was weird about money, always had to calculate things down to the cent. He kept every grocery receipt like we were roommates instead of partners. If I mentioned taking a vacation, he'd whip out a spreadsheet and start talking about goals and allocations. Romantic, right? Still, I brushed it off because when you love someone, you compromise, even when it feels unfair. And in those early years, I really believed we were building something. What most people didn't know and still don't is how much work Victor was when I met him. The guy had zero style. He dressed like someone who got their wardrobe from the clearance bin at a tech convention. Couldn't cook, awkward in social situations. He didn't know how to have a real conversation at a party. I poured years into helping him become someone who could actually show up in a relationship. I was basically his crash course in how to be a decent boyfriend. Better clothes, how to flirt, what emotional support actually looks like. I did all of that. Before me, he'd never even lived with a girlfriend, never had a serious relationship. I taught him what compromise looked like, how to communicate, how to listen, how to celebrate the little things. I turned that man from an emotionally clumsy introvert into someone who could pass for a mature, loving partner. I didn't get a medal for it. I didn't even get a thank you, but I figured maybe one day I'd get the proposal, the future, the forever. Instead, I got excuses. By year 3, people started asking questions. When's the big day? Is he planning to propose? And I'd force a smile while dying inside, because I had no answers. Victor always had a new reason to delay. First it was finishing a certification, then saving for a better emergency fund. Then it was waiting for the right moment. I played along. I told people we were just being responsible. But I knew the truth. I was on a treadmill, moving, sweating, exhausting myself, but never actually going anywhere. What hurt most wasn't even the waiting. It was how casually Victor could celebrate other people's engagements. He'd light up when a coworker got engaged, help plan their bachelor parties, fawn over their rings, but mention marriage with me and he'd shut down, joke about how it was just a piece of paper. Just a piece of paper? Tell that to every couple who proudly calls each other husband and wife. I tried to make it clear what I wanted. I wasn't subtle. I showed him rings I liked, talked about weddings even, brought up timelines. I thought I was being patient and clear, but looking back, I think he heard me. He just didn't care. By the 5th year, I was tired. Not just tired of waiting, but tired of feeling like I was asking for too much. I wasn't trying to force him into something. I just wanted some kind of affirmation that I wasn't wasting my time. I told him directly, I wanted to get married, start planning a future, set the foundation for kids. He gave me that look, that I single quotes am dash gonna dash avoid dash this dash at dash all dash cost look. He started saying he wasn't established enough, that he didn't feel financially ready. The man had a good job, a reliable car, an apartment we could afford. What did he want? A yacht, a mansion? It was exhausting. Trying to figure out what invisible finish line he was chasing. His reaction when his mom brought up grandkids? Pure panic. His friends joked about when he'd put a ring on it, and he'd laugh like it was the most ridiculous idea in the world. And meanwhile, I had Pinterest boards filled with venue ideas, wedding dresses, flower colors. I knew what I wanted. I was ready, and he wasn't even pretending anymore. 6 years Then 7. And finally, I snapped out of the fog. I realized Victor wasn't working toward it. He wasn't waiting for the right time. He was never going to propose. He was perfectly fine coasting forever, getting all the perks of a wife without giving me the title, the commitment, the respect. So I laid it all out, no hints, no games, just real talk. I told him I loved him, I wanted forever. But I needed to know if he was on the same page. After 7 years, I wasn't going to keep pretending we were building something if he didn't even know where it was going. And what did he say? That he might want to get married someday, that he wasn't ready yet, that he needed more time. More time. After 7 years, he said he wanted to be sure we were really compatible. That maybe we needed to figure things out. That was it for me. I told him 6 months, that's the window. I wasn't demanding a proposal on the spot. I just needed to know there was a future in sight, something concrete, something real. Not forever limbo, but instead of stepping up, he withdrew, like I was being unreasonable. Like asking for clarity after nearly a decade was outrageous. 3 weeks later, he said we should take a break, after all that time, all that effort, all those shared dreams and heartbreaks, a break like we were college kids, not full-grown adults who'd built a life together. It crushed me. But it also gave me clarity because that was the moment I knew Victor was never my forever. He was never going to be. I moved out, back in with my old roommate, and waited. I honestly believed he'd realize what he lost, that he'd call and say he made a mistake. That 7 years had to mean something, but the phone never rang. And that's when I started to understand the years I gave him weren't building toward something. They were just passing time for him. 7 years, gone. And he didn't even flinch. So yeah, if I sound bitter, maybe it's because I am. Maybe it's because I earned a happy ending and got ghosted instead. This chapter of my life. It's not just about heartbreak. It's about waking up and realizing the man you built a future with never planned on giving it to you. You know what really messes with your head? Realizing the man who told you he wasn't ready for marriage just married someone else. In half the time you waited, 6 months. That's all it took for Victor to find someone new, fall in love, propose, and walk down the aisle. Meanwhile, I spent 7 years begging for scraps of commitment and getting nothing but excuses. After we took that so-called break, I didn't think it was truly over. I mean, how could it be? You don't just erase 7 years like there. Nothing. We had memories, deep, layered history, inside jokes, family trips, birthdays, holidays. We built a whole rhythm together. Even when I moved out, part of me believed he'd come back, that after a few weeks of space, he'd realize he couldn't live without me. So I waited. I kept my phone loud all the time. Every time it buzzed, my stomach dropped. I expected a message saying, I miss you, or can we talk? But the silence dragged on. Days turned into weeks. Then a month. Then 2, still nothing. And then came the Instagram post that made my heart stop. Victor sitting across from a girl at a trendy little restaurant downtown. The caption was casual, just a dinner photo, but the body language? The way they were leaning toward each other, smiling like they were sharing some private joke? That wasn't a platonic meal. That was a date, and not a first one either. Her name was Iris. I remember reading it and feeling this unfamiliar burn in my chest. I clicked her profile, just a quick scroll, I told myself, just to satisfy the curiosity. But the more I saw, the worse it got. Iris was 24, brunette. One of those artsy types who fill their feeds with soft filtered selfies, paint palettes, and close-ups of lattes with foam art. She worked at some boutique gallery downtown. Her bio was vague, something like dreaming in color or chasing light, whatever that meant. I rolled my eyes so hard it hurt. But the worst part, she was nothing like me, where I was grounded, responsible, and practical. She came off as whimsical, impulsive, like someone who'd spend her last dollar on crystals and call it self-care. I had a steady job, savings, plans. She was posting about street murals and mood boards. I couldn't understand it. How did he go from me to her? At first, I convinced myself it was just a rebound, a distraction. Victor was probably lonely, maybe trying to prove something. I told myself he'd realize the novelty would wear off, and he'd come back. But the posts didn't stop. If anything, they picked up speed. Gallery openings, road trips, beach sunsets, art festivals. They were doing all the things Victor never had time for with me. Suddenly he was this outdoorsy, spontaneous guy, hiking, camping, dancing at live shows. Who was this man? And then came the photos that truly broke me. Victor smiling ear to ear, his arm wrapped around Iris, not just content, glowing. He looked lighter, free, like the version of him I'd tried for years to draw out but never quite reached. That smile, that joy, I'd never seen it with me, not even once. That was the moment it really hit me. Victor hadn't changed. He just never showed me that side of him. It's wild how someone can give you excuses for years. Say they're too busy, too tired, to focus on their career, and then suddenly find all the time in the world for someone new. Hiking trips we never took, concerts we skipped, spontaneous getaways we only talked about. Iris was getting the yes to everything I'd begged for and been denied. And then, 6 months after I moved out, came the post, a soft-lit restaurant table. Iris wearing a white dress, Victor on one knee, holding up a ring that sparkled like a movie prop. The caption, she said yes, I can't explain what happened in my body. It wasn't just pain, it was betrayal and humiliation wrapped into one sharp stab. I felt like I'd been publicly erased, replaced in the cleanest, most brutal way possible. He proposed to her in 6 months, and not just with a ring, a real ring. A massive solitaire diamond that probably cost more than my entire year's rent. Suddenly the man who claimed he wasn't financially ready for marriage was dropping thousands on a proposal. It all clicked. The timelines, the behavior shift. The truth was glaring. Victor had always been capable of commitment. He just never wanted to commit to me. And that realization shattered me. I remember throwing my phone across the room and sinking to the floor, completely undone, not because he was happy, but because I had spent so many years internalizing his fears and his delays, thinking maybe I wasn't doing enough. Maybe I wasn't lovable in the right way. Maybe I needed to be more understanding. When really, I was just never going to be her. I started spiraling, checking her page daily, watching their story unfold like a real-time rom-com. She posted the engagement dinner, the roses, the cake, the hand resting lightly on Victor's chest. As she flashed the ring to the camera, then the congratulations started rolling in. Friends I'd introduced Victor to were cheering for them in the comments. His mom called Iris a blessing. His sister posted, "Welcome to the family." These were people who'd hugged me at birthdays, sat at my table, celebrated our anniversaries. Now they were acting like Iris had always been the main character. It was like being written out of my own life story. I couldn't stop wondering, did any of it mean anything? Did those 7 years really just evaporate? Did he ever plan to marry me, or was I just the long-term placeholder? Someone to keep him comfortable until the right girl showed up? I started picking apart the past, going through old photos, texts, DMs, trying to pinpoint the exact moment things began to shift. I wondered, was he talking to Iris while we were still together? Was she already on the horizon when we took our so-called break? The timeline felt too convenient, too clean, but even if there hadn't been overlap, the message was loud and clear. Victor could be the man I always wanted him to be. He just didn't want to be that man with me. That thought made my chest ache in a whole new way. I tried talking to friends about it, but most of them just shrugged. You need to let it go. Victor's moved on. Maybe you should too. Easy words from people who hadn't spent their entire adult life building something that turned out to be disposable. I wasn't just mourning a breakup. I was mourning years of effort, sacrifices, hope. I gave everything to that man, emotionally, mentally, even financially. I stayed when it was hard. I supported him through job stress, family drama, self-doubt, and when he finally became someone stable, happy, grounded, he gave all of that to someone else. And here's what stings the most. The life they have now, it's the life I built with him. The dreams I nurtured, the foundation I helped lay, he's just living them out with a new co-star. And everyone's acting like it's this beautiful love story, like fate brought them together. But nobody talks about how many years of someone else's life it cost. Nobody ever does. You know what I wasn't prepared for? That after 7 years of being part of someone's life, their world, their inner circle, I'd be forgotten so fast it'd feel like I was never even there. I thought the breakup would be the hard part. I thought watching Victor fall for someone new and propose within 6 months would be the deepest cut, but I was wrong. What hurt more than anything was realizing how quickly everyone else moved on. Like the life Victor and I shared, the people we shared it with never really belonged to me in the first place. They chose them, not me. And they did it without hesitation. At first, I tried to convince myself I was being overly sensitive, that maybe people were just trying to be neutral. Maybe they didn't want to get involved or take sides. But the more I saw, the clearer it became. I'd been erased, quietly, neatly. Like I was just a temporary chapter in Victor's story, and now the new main character had arrived. I found out from a friend, someone I used to consider a friend, that Victor's engagement was being celebrated like it was the royal wedding. His mom hosted a dinner, his sister organized a group trip to celebrate, and not one of them so much as reached out to me, not even a "how are you holding up?" After 7 years of being part of their holidays, their milestones, their family group texts. And sure, I get it, technically, I'm the ex, but it wasn't just a short fling. I was there through everything. I showed up to birthday parties with homemade gifts. I helped cook for Thanksgiving. I sat with them when his dad was hospitalized. I became part of their family because I was family, or at least I thought I was. Turns out I was just a guest, temporary, replaceable. When Iris showed up, it was like I had never existed. And the worst part, no one seemed to question it. Victor's friends, his co-workers, even mutual friends who had known me for years. They all welcomed her with open arms, the same people who celebrated Victor and me on our anniversaries, who cheered when we signed our lease together, who called me part of the crew. Gone, and now they were sharing Iris's engagement post, leaving heart emojis and "so happy for you guys" comments like it wasn't completely surreal. Some of them even wrote things like "finally" or "you two are perfect together," as if Victor hadn't spent nearly a decade telling me he wasn't ready for any of this. Do you know how that feels? Like you were the warm-up act and now the real show is starting. And everyone's in their seats with popcorn, smiling like it's the best thing they've ever seen. It wasn't just online either. I'd run into people who used to be part of our circle, people I considered real friends, and they'd give me this awkward smile. Some didn't bring it up at all, just changed the subject quickly. Like Victor's engagement was some off-limits landmine. Others would hit me with that fake sympathy tone, saying things like, "You okay?" or "It's probably for the best," and all I could do was smile and nod, pretend like I wasn't slowly unraveling inside. Pretend like it didn't feel like every person who used to matter to me had jumped ship. The second Victor upgraded his life, I even found out that a few of our old couple friends, people who we used to double date with, laugh with, cry with, were invited to the wedding. Victor and Iris's wedding, and they are SVPD, yes, no hesitation, no check-in with me. One of those couples, they were there the night Victor and I moved into our apartment, helped us carry furniture, ate takeout on the floor with us and toasted to our future, and now they were suiting up to watch him marry someone else like it was no big deal. I wasn't angry right away. At first, I was just stunned, then embarrassed, then heartbroken, but eventually, that sadness started to twist into something sharper, something bitter. Because while Victor got to move forward, surrounded by all the people who once cheered for us, I was left alone, ghosted by an entire community that I had helped build around us. No one wanted to acknowledge what happened. No one said, "Hey, this seems a little fast," or "Didn't you and Wanda date for, like, forever?" It was all swept under the rug, rebranded as fate, as love finally working out. It wasn't just our friends either. Victor's mom, who used to say she couldn't wait for me to be part of the family, who once gave me a family heirloom necklace to wear to a wedding. She was now posting pictures of Iris with captions like "so grateful for my future daughter-in-law." Like I hadn't spent 7 Thanksgivings helping her set the table, and Victor, he didn't say a word. No explanation, no closure, just a clean cut. I was unfollowed, my number was probably deleted. He had his new life now, and I wasn't part of the story anymore. What messed me up the most was that no one even questioned it. It wasn't just that they accepted Iris, it was that they embraced her so easily. Like they were just waiting for the chance, and maybe maybe people prefer a shiny new love story over the one that's weathered and cracked. Maybe people love an Instagram perfect couple that looks good in engagement photos, throws artsy dinner parties, and posts poetic captions about finding your person. Maybe no one wants to think about the girlfriend who stuck around for years, the one who poured herself into a man who never planned to stay. It was like I had become a footnote in my own history. Everyone else was on the next chapter, and I was stuck rereading the last one, trying to figure out how the ending changed. Without warning. And when I brought it up, when I tried to vent or express how much it hurt, people told me I was being dramatic, that I needed to be happy for them, that holding on to this kind of pain was toxic. But here's the thing they never say out loud. Sometimes, what hurts most isn't losing the person. It's losing everyone else with them, the friends, the family, the shared routines, the little community you built around your relationship. That's the real loss. That's what lingers. I wasn't just grieving Victor. I was grieving my place in the world we created, and while he was busy moving on with someone new, with all the support and celebration he never gave me, I was standing alone with memories that didn't matter to anyone but me. They chose them, and I had no one left who remembered who I used to be before I was replaced. 3 months before Victor and Iris's wedding, I made a decision that some people might call obsessive, maybe even pathetic. But to me, it was necessary. I had to see it for myself. I had to witness what Victor had chosen. I needed to look at the woman who replaced me and understand why everything I waited 7 years for was handed to her after 6 months. No, I didn't go to make a scene. I wasn't planning on stopping the ceremony or causing some dramatic meltdown. I just needed to be there, quietly, from a distance. I didn't want closure. I wanted clarity. I wanted to see what I had lost with my own eyes. Because no amount of social media stalking or whispered updates from mutual friends was enough. The wedding was held just outside Dallas at this ridiculously beautiful garden venue. And here's the cosmic punch to the gut. It was the same venue Victor and I had toured together. Back when we were still in that hopeful someday phase. Back when I truly believed we'd get there. I remember walking the grounds with him years ago, hand in hand, talking about flowers and first dances and guest lists. He'd smiled then, not fully committed, but enough to keep me believing, and now he was using that dream, our dream, to marry someone else. I got there early, parked far away, and made sure I blended in. I wore something neutral, nothing flashy. I stood back behind a line of trees, hidden just enough to watch everything unfold without being noticed. Guests started arriving around 1:30. I recognized most of them, his friends, his co-workers, even some of the neighbors from our old apartment complex, people I'd hosted, cooked for, laughed with. Now here they were, smiling wide, dressed up, thrilled to celebrate a love story that began after I left. The chairs were lined up in perfect white rows. Every seat had a delicate ribbon tied to it. Soft music played from a string quartet. There were flowers everywhere, white roses, pale pink peonies, wild greenery that looked like it had been handpicked from a fairy tale. It was flawless. Everything about it. Which, of course, made it hurt even more. And then Victor appeared. He stepped out with his groomsmen, laughing at something someone said. I froze. For a second, I couldn't breathe. He looked so happy, relaxed, confident, like the man I had begged to show up for me had finally arrived, just not for me. His suit was perfectly tailored. He stood at the altar with his hands folded calmly in front of him. There wasn't even a trace of nerves on his face. This wasn't the Victor who got flustered when I brought up marriage. This wasn't the man who said he wasn't ready. This was someone who couldn't wait to say I do. And then the music changed, everyone stood, and Iris appeared. She walked down the aisle with this slow, graceful ease. Like she wasn't even trying to be perfect, she just was. Her dress was this flowing, bohemian gown, simple but stunning. Her hair was down in soft waves with tiny white flowers tucked into it, and her smile's God. That smile, she looked like she was walking toward everything she'd ever wanted. And somehow knew she was already loved beyond words. But what truly shattered me wasn't her. It was him. The way Victor looked at her, his entire face lit up. He wasn't just smiling, he was beaming, his eyes filled with tears. And he mouthed something to her. I couldn't hear it from where I stood, but I didn't need to. I knew those words weren't just polite compliments. They were raw and real and full of feeling. In that moment, something in me broke. Because in all our years together, Victor never looked at me like that, not once. Not on our anniversaries, not during special dinners, not even in the quiet moments. I tried to recall a single memory that felt even close to that kind of emotion on his face. And I couldn't. The ceremony started. They stood facing each other, holding hands. The officiant said a few words. But I was barely listening. My focus was on their faces, on the way they looked at one another like no one else existed. Then came the vows. They wrote their own. Victor went first. He talked about how Iris made him believe in love again. How she brought color and peace into his life. He said she taught him how to feel, how to trust, how to hope. Every word hit like a hammer to the chest. Because I had said those exact things to him about us years ago, and back then he just nodded. He never said it back. He was saying all the things I waited years to hear to someone else. Then Iris spoke. She said Victor was the man she had always dreamed of, the one who made her feel safe and seen. She thanked him for supporting her, encouraging her art, believing in her even when she doubted herself. She said he restored her faith and love in herself, in the world. She cried as she spoke, and Victor reached up to wipe her tears. I stood behind that tree, rooted in place, as my throat tightened and my hands went cold. This wasn't some show. It wasn't a rushed romance. It was real. It was deep. It was the kind of connection I had convinced myself Victor just wasn't capable of. But clearly, he was, just not with me. They kissed. Everyone clapped. Iris laughed and threw her arms around him. Victor picked her up and spun her in a full circle. Their friends cheered. Their families cried. It was the kind of moment you only see in movies. The kind of love that looks effortless and destined. And then something happened. As they were walking back down the aisle hand in hand, Victor's eyes swept across the crowd, just for a second, and they landed right on me. He saw me. I know he did. There was a flicker of something on his face. Surprise, maybe confusion, and then pity. That last one made my stomach turn. He didn't stop, didn't acknowledge me, just kept walking. But that glance, that 1 second of eye contact, said everything. He knew. He saw what I saw. And there was no remorse, no hesitation, just the quiet acknowledgement that the life he had now was never meant to include me. I left before the reception started. I didn't want to risk running into anyone. I didn't want to hear their congratulations or see their champagne toasts. I didn't want to listen to the speeches or see the first dance or smell the cake that I would have picked out if it were my wedding. I got in my car, sat behind the wheel, and cried like something inside me had died, because it had. Not just the dream, not just the hope, but the illusion I'd been clinging to for so long, that Victor might come back. That maybe I'd meant more than I thought, that I still mattered somehow. Seeing him marry Iris, seeing how much he loved her, it stripped all that away. I wasn't part of his story anymore. Maybe I never really was. There's a kind of grief no one prepares you for, the kind that comes not from losing someone to death, but from watching them live out the life you built with someone else. That's what Victor did. He got the life I spent 7 years helping him grow into, and he handed it to Iris like it was always meant for her, and somehow no one seems to care what it cost me. After the wedding, after I saw them exchange vows and kiss and smile like a couple straight out of a magazine, I thought maybe I'd finally hit rock bottom. But it turns out the fall keeps going long after the impact. Because they didn't just get married and disappear into a honeymoon. They made sure the world knew how happy they were every week. Another picture, another milestone, another update about this perfect little life they were building, the one I thought was supposed to be ours. They bought a house, a charming, modern place in one of my favorite neighborhoods. The exact area Victor and I used to walk through on weekends, talking about where we might end up someday when things finally settled. Back then, he said we couldn't afford it, said it wasn't the right time. But with Iris, suddenly everything was possible. They got a dog next, a golden retriever puppy. I saw the post before I could even block it, a video of Iris holding the tiny fluff ball in her lap, captioned "Starting our little family." And in the background, Victor laughing, holding up a new leash, his arm around her shoulder like she was his entire world. I sat there frozen. Because that was my dream. That was the life I envisioned when I stuck around through all his not yets and maybes and somedays. I waited, I compromised, I grew beside him. Through job changes and family drama and every excuse he gave about not being ready, I was patient, loyal, present. But in the end, none of it earned me the life he promised in small pieces over those 7 years. All it did was make it easier for him to hand that finished version of himself to someone new. The truth is, I did the emotional heavy lifting. I taught Victor how to communicate, how to be vulnerable, how to think beyond himself. I stood by him when he was anxious about work. I helped him understand how to support a partner, how to be present during hard times, how to fight fair, how to care about someone outside his own head. I trained him for marriage. I just didn't get to be the bride. It's like I was the unpaid intern, doing all the groundwork while Iris got the full-time offer with benefits, and the raise, and the corner office. And no one, not a single person, has ever acknowledged that. Instead, they act like this whole thing was inevitable. Like Victor and Iris were some cosmic match the universe had to bring together. Their wedding photos looked like a commercial. Every friend, every family member beaming, writing captions like "meant to be, forever started here, so happy for you both." You know what no one says? No one says, "Hey, didn't he date Wanda for 7 years?" No one asks, "Isn't it kind of weird how fast this happened?" Because nobody wants to talk about the woman left behind, the one who waited, who supported, who sacrificed. Because to everyone else, I was just part of his past, a stepping stone on his journey to this great love story. A prequel no one really wants to watch. I don't even blame Iris, to be honest. She walked into the version of Victor I spent years molding. She never had to deal with the awkward, emotionally unavailable guy I met at that party when I was 19. She never had to explain to him why certain jokes weren't funny, or why silence during an argument doesn't solve anything. She never had to beg for the bare minimum. I did that. So when people say things like, "Wow, he's such a great partner now," or "they're such a solid couple," I just want to scream, because I helped him become that person. I did the work, I took the hits, and she reaps the rewards. It's funny how quickly people forget what you went through once the story has a new lead. I'm expected to be gracious, to be happy for them, to let go and move on. But they don't see the nights I spent crying on the bathroom floor, wondering what I did wrong. They didn't hear the conversations I had with myself at 2 a.m., trying to convince myself I was still enough. They weren't there when I looked at my reflection and didn't recognize the woman who gave everything and got nothing back. Victor moved on like I was a phase, like I was just a lesson on the way to something better. And Iris, she gets to live the dream. The house, the dog, the love letters, the holidays with his family, the smiles that used to be mine. People say time heals, but honestly, it hasn't. It's been months since the wedding, and every update feels like a fresh paper cut, small, Silent, but stinging just the same. It's not even about wanting him back. That ship sailed a long time ago. It's about the injustice of it all. The way women like me are expected to invest in men who are still figuring it out, only to be tossed aside once they finally do. I know I'm not the only one. I've had conversations with women who've lived the exact same story, different names. Same heartbreak. We teach men how to love, how to be present, how to show up, and then we watch them use that knowledge with someone new, someone who never had to suffer through the trial and error. And what do? We get told to heal, to be proud that we helped someone grow, even if we don't benefit from the growth. But I'm tired of pretending that's enough. I'm tired of clapping from the sidelines while someone else takes the victory lap, because the truth is, I deserve that ending. I deserve the ring, the vows, the life I spent years preparing for. I didn't stick around through Victor's worst years just to be erased from his best. And I'm done pretending that what happened is okay. People might see me as the bitter ex, the girl who couldn't let go, the one who watched her former partner marry someone else and just couldn't move on. But that's not the full story. I'm the woman who loved him first, who believed in him before anyone else, who held him up when he was still finding his footing, who helped shape the man he became. And no, I didn't get the fairy tale, but I was the foundation. And even if no one else says it, even if the world celebrates their perfect little love story, I know the truth. She married the man I built, and that truth, painful as it is going to have to be enough for now.